to Getting Grounded, the open and honest conversation about the transition of parenthood and everything that comes along with it. The joy, the chaos, the fulfillment, the challenge, the identity shifts, the relationship changes. Let's talk about it all. Yay! Today I have one of my very, very best friends since I was like, I've known you since I was a baby, but friends since we were like 10-ish, I don't know. So I'm very excited to have another Mom Friends episode. And today we're going to talk about everything from miscarriages to friendships with children. So welcome, Pags. I call her Pags, which is no longer her last name, but that is a hard habit to break. But I'm so happy to be here. So thank you.
So this is great that you're doing this. Awesome. Happy to help.
So aside from the little tidbits of information I just gave, tell everyone about you, your parenting situation, your life, your everything, whatever you want to inform us about. So give us a little introduction.
My mom journey, I have a 3.5-year-old, Sydney. So 3.5-year-old daughter. She was born in 2022. And then I have a just turned 1-year-old on April 11th. That's Zoe. So 2 girls, and it's the best. It's overwhelming. It's all the things.
And Dana and I live far apart from one another, which is the worst ever. Because now we have 2 young kids and can like never see each other. But one of my pieces of advice involved in all this is if somehow magically you can find yourself a best friend that had a kid 6 months before you, do that because the amount of middle of the night, I don't even know what time of day, I would just send you like rapid fire texts of like, is this normal? What the fuck is going on? I mean, I'll never forget the very first one I sent you, which was I was home from the hospital for 2 days and I had a blood clot that was the size of a fucking softball. And I picked it up out of the toilet, took a picture, sent it to Dana, not my doctor, and said, is this normal? Yeah. And she was like, nope.
I do remember that. I think I was like, so 1, call the doctor. Number 2, what are you doing? Because you're clearly like, sit down, lay down, doing too much. It was like, do you know you have a hole this big, as big as my whole head, like inside your uterus. So you're doing too much. Slow it down.
I actually didn't even know that, which is crazy. Like I had a doula and I remember sending it to her and being like, well, my friend put it in these words and nobody told me that. And she was like, I did. You probably just didn't hear it. I'm like, no, I would remember if someone told me I had a gaping wound inside of my body that was the size of a dinner plate. I'm pretty sure that would have landed.
So, right. It was like fresh in my mind because it was 6 months before, but like, yeah, no matter. And both my births were vaginal, yours was vaginal, but it was also shocking to me that I was like, oh, that also still happens if you have a C-section. Is it's literally just sense of detaching. So I'm like,
right.
Why? And then I'm like, why did I think you'd be bleeding that much just from I'm like, we don't know anything about what's happening in there until it happens. And then you're like,
I know. And you sent me, I like have mixed feelings about social media, but you sent me an Instagram post that like really, really made it land because up until that point, well, one, they discharge you from the hospital and they're like rapid fire giving you instructions like, don't go up and downstairs, don't lift anything heavier than baby, don't do this and that. And I'm like, come again, I have a 16-pound dog.
You're going to go to the doctor with the baby in the car seat.
And carry the fucking car seat.
Exactly. But then he's going back to work next week and there's going to be another appointment like next week. And they're like, don't carry. So like,
oh, wow.
Okay, so immediately
know where this baby in here magically.
Oh, that's how this goes.
Just place the baby on the magic carpet that will ride it into the doctor's office.
That was the beginning of the contradictory advice or like the setting you up for things that are just not possible.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I'm going to go up and down the stairs. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do whatever. I was running around the hospital because the hospital room the day I gave birth. I showered. I was cleaning stuff up. The midwives came in and they were like all praising me for my insane birth and then doing that. No one was like, sit the fuck down. You're going to die. Like no one.
Come in and
because moms are moms, except you.
Know what?
Thank God
and
for you. So
I do want to reflect on the, like, I was so happy to to be that for you, because my friend Olivia, she was that for me. She was really only like close friend I had that had kids before me. And Dean was like, I think even like maybe a year or 2 years, but then she had her daughter like 2 weeks after me. So she was pregnant, like she was getting fresh into it again with having her second. And she was so there for me. Like, I could just text her anything crazy and she was there for me. And I was like, oh, that was so, like you said, invaluable, that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to, I have to pass it along, because you just are not prepared. No, you cannot be prepared enough for the change that you go through, and like you think you get it before you have kids. And then you're like, oh, no, like there's literally absolutely nothing I could have done to prepare for this. I look back at some of like maybe the expectations I had, like, oh, oh yeah, you have a 1-year-old that come to my bachelorette party. Like, that's no big deal. Like, no awareness. You just don't have the awareness of like how tough it is. And then, like I remember even sending her a text being like, I apologize for quite literally anything that I ever said to you between when you had Dean and when I had Sydney. Like, I get it now. And, she's like, you know what? It's totally fine. First of all, you're fine. But like, that's like it's like you can't get it, and then you do, and then you're there for the next friend, the next person that's going through it.
Totally true. I did that. I felt the exact same way. My best friend Brittany had a baby like 3 or 4 months after me. And I not only did I like want her questions and like welcome them, I would constantly tell her, like, please never hold back from anything you have to ask me.
Yeah.
Alex did this for me and it was like the greatest thing ever. And I just wanted to pay it forward. But I also had the exact same feeling that you did about any friends that I had kids after. Like, oh my God, I will never forget also coming to your house, which this was a good thing, but coming to your house, I was very pregnant. You had a 3-month-old. And you were like trying to make it all seem so much easier than it was, because you were afraid for me because I was going to poop too.
So I was like, this is so easy with one. It's so easy.
Which
And are you complaining about anything to you? It's like, oh,
you guys did make it look easy, but also we went to brunch. We met your brother. Like we did all this stuff that we
that was
went
the first
out.
time I did any of those things.
Which is crazy to think about and is another one of the like advice things I have, because I'm like, if someone can force you to get out of the house, or you can sign up for something that forces you, it's great, because then you prove to yourself, you're like, wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I am glad that I did that with you and that was helpful. But I was like, of course we could just go to the restaurant. Who cares if she cries and you breastfeed in public? Like all these things that I'm like, it's fine. It'll be fine. I'm here. You're not alone. But really, you're like, you have no awareness of how all of that feels and how daunting it can be.
Okay, if she nursed at this time, then 2 hours and just all that.
Even Sam has said that to me, who's one of our joint best friends. I keep saying best friends, but I really mean it because I love all these people so much. But she just had a baby like a few months ago, and she has referenced to me friends without babies and just like the things that they'll say, which are harmless, but just the lack of understanding of how that, because you can't, like you said, you cannot prepare, you cannot understand. It is the biggest shift that anything and nothing will compare to
Oh, nope.
it.
No.
Yeah. So beyond that, having the best friend, which is, I know there's no way to plan for that, but if somehow you can, I just find a friend that has a kid before you. Don't be the first in your friend group to have a kid.
That's the number one takeaway of this episode. Don't be the first. Yeah.
Don't be the first. Unless you really want to be the martyr and just help people, which is also great. And I love helping people. So, but tell us, so you have 2 girls, like you just said. Tell us, one, do you feel like you're complete? Because I know some people do and some people don't like have that feeling. Like, do you guys talk about having more kids, which is also a conversation that you and I would be having personally and haven't yet. So let's have it in front of people.
Let's have it. Yeah.
And tell me about the transition from 1 to 2. I know nothing about that life. So
We just started
with a bang.
hard right out of the way. So it's funny because I feel like we were always like, we'll have 2 kids and that's that. Whatever, crazy times. Life is expensive. And then, we had Sydney. Okay, yep, we're gonna have 1 more kid. We had Zoe.
and we are only having two. And Graham got
Are
sick,
you
so
sure?
and he
Oh,
that's
he
me.
did?
Yes, yes.
Did I know that?
No, I know. So I'm like, oh, I can share. I am actually having this conversation with you in front of everyone. Uh,
Wow.
Sorry for the personal medical information out there about my husband, but HIPAA, sorry. But um, it was like that is the right decision for us, but I'm sad. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like one, I had Sydney and then I'm like it goes by so fast, but I'm like, oh, I'll get this again with my second. Like
Yeah.
I'll be able to cherish the newborn snuggles one more time and all these things one more time. Well, one, there's no cherishing happening. Things it's even crazier than before. It's like just going past at lightning speed. I don't know what each time I'm like, oh, so I guess every time you have a kid, you think like it'll like you be prepared and you just so I'll just never be prepared for anything. But um it's it is just like each time that it ends, I'm like, oh, that's really it. That is the end. And so it's like, it's the right decision for us just because I feel like life is so expensive and there's certain, goals we want to have for each kid and for our family that, it's like I just I want to make sure that I'm making life the best I can for those two rather than bringing in more.
Fair.
I am number three, so I feel a little sorry to my unborn self. But it's just with our ages and just life situation. It's like okay, two, you know.
Yeah.
But if I won the lottery, I'd be like, oh, let's have a third. I don't know.
Interesting. I know. I've had this conversation with Michael a long time ago, which we go back and forth on more kids. I'm very still in this moment, very torn. But the one time, which I was probably still very postpartum and emotional, not that I wouldn't be anyway, but I was like, I don't want finances to be what dictates this decision. Like that part feels so depressing about
Yeah,
it. Like it's like, oh, because everything sucks and the world is so expensive, we won't have the
Mhm.
future family that I want to have when I'm 60. Like that.
And I am being like, I mean, anybody really, you know what I mean? It's like you would make it, work, it's fine. It's like I'm being like a little like, we can't afford it. It's like comparative to what, but you know what I mean? It's more just like,
But to your point about goals and the life you want to provide, like that I
you
totally
would have to
understand.
make certain sacrifices, right? So it's like
Yeah.
just for us, I think I'm surprised. I guess I should rephrase it that I was so like definitely two, and that's it. And I was
Mm.
surprised to feel like oh, only two, Whereas
Yeah.
going into it, it was like, who needs a third,
Right.
But I
I mean,
do feel
yeah.
like, we are complete. Like in the end, I'm like happy with the decision, and first of all, I
Yeah.
can't imagine. I'm like, oh my god, what if we had a boy? I can't imagine.
That's what I was just thinking. What if we had a little boy?
We are a girl, we're girls in this house.
Girl
I mean,
family.
and so in that way, and that's always
Mm.
me too, because people will, not very many, but every once in a while you'll get somebody being like, "Oh, is Graham sad about not having this boy?" And I'm like, Graham could not be happier with his two girls, and
I know. It's this thing that you don't realize until after you have kids too, because I have a really good friend here who, like, as the mom, they both really just wanted a second girl. They have their daughter who's perfect and they want a second daughter. And I'm like, but a mom needs a little boy. Like you don't like my daughter is my best friend. I cannot wait to be best friends with her my whole life. The way we look at each other, like it is the sweetest thing. And the bond with the mother son thing is just like
I feel like you just love
I
the situation you're in so much that you're like, everyone needs that, because I'm like, no.
exactly.
You're sitting there, I'm like, no, no, no,
I know you're like, no, I have two
no,
perfect little
no.
girls. I
But
don't need
it
this
is
stuff.
funny, like we had Sydney and Graham was like, people were thinking, like, I think they thought, like, because he's, kind of like a manly man, like, oh, he probably wants his boy. And I'm like, you have no idea on my end. He's being like, another girl, another girl, another girl. Like, expect it. Like, so
Graham is so manly. And then I'll obviously never forget for my 30th birthday, I invited everyone to Mardi Gras. And Graham came with like the artistically painted design, like as if he's a fashion designer, costumes. And we're like, what's did this come from?
yeah, that's true. That actually is really true. Well,
He's probably thrilled to like braid the girl's hair and make
no,
their
but
outfits.
he's the pigtails, the part is perfect. I'm like, oh, have dad do your hair. Yeah, he's good at it. So,
but our house is not like that. So when he does Everly's hair, it's like,
yeah.
like she's ready for school. I'm like, she's not ready.
Oh,
But then she doesn't let you redo it. So that's just how she has to.
yeah. Well, not we're dealing with that too.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Okay.
But okay, and then transition from 1 to 2, easier than 0 to 1.
Okay.
I mean, like harder in the obvious ways of like now you have 2 people you have to, keep alive and stuff. But just I think like we talked about like nothing prepares you for being a mom that like going from just like having a kid and being like, oh my God, I get like I'm so tired. Like, it's like I knew to expect some of those things. And I knew that it's like you have lived through it. So like this isn't gonna last forever, the good or the bad. So it's just like I don't remember even being like you'd think I'd be even more tired. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm tired. Just like move through it. You know what I mean? Whereas like this kid was like felt like it was never ending, never going to end. But it's like I know now, like, no, they will sleep. You know what I mean? You'll get through it. I also feel like I did have challenges with Sydney with breastfeeding at first, and she like wasn't gaining good weight. So like that was just stressful during postpartum, and it kind of like ramped up some anxiety in me because my doctor's office made me like come in and get her weighed like every single day.
I remember that.
So, and then Zoe, it was completely opposite. But it's also like, well, was it easier because like I knew how to breastfeed, and then you also make more you make more milk ducts. Like you produce more milk with each subsequent pregnancy. Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
Oh, I think you actually like increase your amount of ducts.
What would happen to me?
You're
I made milk for a fucking village of children because of the 2 of them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. But I think it's actually just like you like each time you get more ducts, but then it'll regulate based off of the usage, right? Like so if you
I would show you those pictures. I would have like jars full of milk from a session of pumping.
But also that was because when your milk started to come in, it was like, oh, okay, we're doing this every second. Versus if you had one kid, it would regulate to just for that one kid.
Right, but now if I had like one by itself, but my body already produced that much, like would it then make more? It'll be a milk factory, more so than I was the last time. Whatever, I don't even know that that's happening, but that's a fascinating.
Yeah. So I think in many ways it's easier because you already kind of know what to expect. You've been through it. And you know that like it's everything is gonna, everything will pass. The hard parts will pass,
Yeah. In between 1 and 2, you had a miscarriage, which I would love to talk about. Because you were you're my first friend for everything. You're my first friend that happened to, but then very much not my only friend. Like
right.
the amount.
I feel like anybody that try, the more kids you try to have, like it's good. It's like good chance it's going to happen,
Well, I remember in my appointment, even before I knew I had twins, like all the things I was asking all these questions about, like, why don't you tell people until the second trimester? What are the rates? Whatever. And I actually at the worst doctor's office, they wouldn't give me any information. She was just telling me I was being anxious. And I was like, I'm actually just information seeking here because I don't understand these things. I don't know anything about them. I've never been pregnant before.
Yeah.
But I do remember somebody shared with me and they were like, well, it's 1 in 4 in this stage. It happens to, which is really a very high percent. Yeah. So it happens to so many more people than I think we even know it's happening to. So I just wanted to talk about that because it's far more common.
Yes.
And just like how that experience was. And I remember because you told me the whole thing and I'm curious of so many things. Like, would you have not told as many people? Because you always think like, well, why would I not tell these people? They're the same people I would tell. But is that the case? Maybe you wouldn't have wanted to share that.
No, I think so first of all, I had never I had Sydney. We got pregnant relatively easily with like just kind of like tracking, and then when she was about like 18 months, we were like, okay, let's start trying. I got pregnant again relatively easily, and then great. So far everything's going good. My mom had a miscarriage between my two brothers. So I
Oh,
knew that like growing up and like, she had kind of like talked to me about that. So like at least I had like a little bit of like a personal experience there with that. But yeah, I was I thought I was 8 weeks. I hadn't gone in yet for my first appointment, but I had like had the positive pregnancy test. And it was like, oh, such a rough time. It was actually I started miscarrying on Mother's Day, like Mother's Day weekend. So that was awesome. And I first just started having like a little bit of bleeding, a little bit of spotting, which you now know spotting can mean like everything and nothing. And so, so I call and they're like, it could mean nothing or, it could mean something. So, let's have you, so it was a Saturday. So they were like, let's have you come in, but the office wasn't open. So they'll let's have you come into the hospital and do an ultrasound. So I'm like, I'm already nervous. I already feel like it's not a good sign. I was so sick with Sydney, like horrible first trimester. So I'm like, I was already kind of being like, this is weird that I'm not feeling anything. But I was like, when did I start feeling sick with Sydney exactly? Was it not till 9 weeks? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of trying to like compare. But I'm like, all right, this is not great. So my in-laws watched Sydney and me and Graham went to the hospital and I'm so nervous. And just like during the ultrasound, you just know, like the ultrasound technicians, they know they're not supposed to diagnose anything, but I'm just like staring at her face and she has the monitor turned away from me. Not that like you ever know what the heck is on that anyway,
right.
but I can just tell it's not going well. And just like the tears are just like just streaming down my face. And she's like, you know, trying to say something, she's like, maybe you're just not as far along as you think. And I'm like, that can't be because I know that, I've used the app. Like, I know exactly what day I was ovulating. It's like, but she's just trying to say anything to kind of diffuse. Right. And I'm like, oh, that can't be it. And it was just like, it's just such a horrible experience. Like, I'm in the hospital and then the results get sent to my OB. She calls me and confirms like, it looks like you're having a miscarriage, which, I knew. And it's just like, I'm just like sobbing in like the hospital like lobby. I have to go get blood work. And then nothing against the blood work technicians, but they're just like, you're just sitting in this office, you're having like one of the worst days of your life. And like, it's just so hard to just see people just like having a normal day. You know what I mean? Like, they're just kind of like talking about like, I don't know, just everyday stuff or what they're going to do this weekend. And I'm like, I am like, this is the, this is the worst, So,
Yeah.
and it was like the next day's Mother's Day. So it's just like now, there's just certain things. It's like now I always just like kind of have that little blemish on like a holiday that's supposed to be celebrating me. So
Mm.
I was just really tough. And I do think it was better that I already had Sydney. Like I was able to like go home and get extra like cuddles and snuggles and she didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? So it was just like, I feel really bad for people that that's their first experience, whereas I had already had a successful pregnancy. Um, but as far as like the telling people, like, yes and no, like there's people that like, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't care if I hadn't really told people yet because I like was just going to wait. But in the end, they're the same people that I'm going to tell I had a miscarriage too. Right. So it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I think for like certain people, it doesn't matter whether you tell them like right when you get the positive pregnancy test or not, because no, for better or for worse, they're going to know things about your life, your parents, your best friends, things like that. I think what is
Yeah.
really hard is that there's certain people that you'd never tell, like, okay, like that happened to me. And then that Monday, my graduate student was starting. I was supposed to have a graduate student for 12 weeks. I am now like actively having a miscarriage. I like didn't go into work that day, but I had to go in like the rest of the week because this person's like, I'm their supervisor. Like if they need the hours, that was like it was the worst timing. I'm like, you can't wear a tampon. So you
Oh
have,
my
yeah, so you have to wear a pad. And it's like, I'm not going to tell this girl that I've never met before, what's going on. I told like my supervisor and a couple of coworkers, but then like, you're just like sitting there with doing your job. I have a patient in front of me. I have their parents in, and then you just feel, big gush of blood. You want to cry, but you're not gonna go, oh, hey, dad of this 4-year-old. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm actively having a miscarriage right now. It's like, what I mean? There's certain people that it's just like, that I think is the hardest part, is that you're silently going through this horrible experience and have to just carry on, and I think that if I had had a different job, like, that part would be easier, but I had a very high demand job. Like, I have to go in. I had already taken off so much time with Sydney being sick from daycare a million times that I couldn't just take a week off to just sort of deal with that. So I'm just trying to kind of push through and having this horrible time. And then I had to keep going for more blood work because my HCG levels were like still elevated. So even though I'm miscarrying, it's still showing that I'm having like that human growth hormone.
Yeah.
So they're like they had to keep having me tested, because it's like if that doesn't go down, that could be an indicator that there's still a little bit left that you haven't miscarried, right? So it's like they're letting me spontaneously miscarry, but if you don't miscarry everything, you'd have to go in for a D&C,
Oh my God.
because you could go septic. So then I'm also thinking, well, thank God I live in Massachusetts. I can't even imagine women that have to deal with this, not to get political, but who have to
Right.
deal with this and be thinking about like having to prove that this is a miscarriage, or that like, oh, well, we can't actually bring you in for the D&C unless you go into sepsis,
Oh
like get
my
sick.
God.
So I'm like, okay, well, at least thank God I have like good healthcare options here. That's so sad that some people have to worry about that on top of this.
Mm.
But it was just like I was just getting dumped on, because then Sydney got a stomach bug. So then she was throwing up and sick, and then she had a fever, and then I got sick but started having a stomach bug, and then I got a really high fever, but all the while my HCG levels are still high. So then I'm like, well, I have 103 fever, but I might be the stomach bug for my kid. And they're like, no, you have to go to the hospital, because like, what if it's not that? So then I'm like, oh my God. So then we go to the ER. I had to get another ultrasound to make sure that I passed everything. So that at the end I'm like, oh great, miscarriage is going perfectly. You just have the stomach bug on top of it, and I was just
Oh my God.
I cannot handle this. This is crazy.
Yeah. Also, like managing because you have a child at home and like be there, it's impractical to think that the mom who is like needs to be there for the child is also like in that of the hospital. Like that is,
Mhm.
like really, really. So I think the two, well, there's a lot of difficult parts of this, but the
Yeah.
two that you don't realize from the outside is the going through it silently and
Mhm.
encountering many, many people who have no idea or can't relate or whatever, and then
Yeah.
having to go about your day.
Yeah.
And it's like weirdly parallel. It's not the same, but it's weirdly parallel to like my brother dying and then just like existing in the world and being like
Yes.
wanting to tell every single person like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not myself because my brother died,
Yes.
like a couple days ago, and so like
I think that's
the
the hardest.
dealing with things silently is wild
Yes. I
to
think it's
consider.
just like, and I am fortunate that I have not really like had a lot of tragedy in my life, that this was like, I'm lucky that like losing a f my pregnancy at 8 weeks is like, oh, that's one of the hardest losses I've had, right? Like, that's like, I try to kinda, I mean, maybe that's like toxic positivity, but I try to kinda like think
A
about
little bit.
sure,
Like that sucks and that's a tragic thing and
but
yeah,
I do think now
I'm
that
not lucky.
sure. I do think though that I understand that concept of like, you're going through something so hard and for everyone else it's just a normal day. And like,
Right.
I don't know, what do you expect people to do, But it's just like how those two things can exist at the same time is painful in a way
Yeah.
that there's nothing you can do about it. Then another aspect, like you said, getting pregnant, that it's common, and that there's a good chance that like you could have a miscarriage. You're going to know somebody that's had one, but the pregnancy after having a miscarriage, I couldn't believe how like insane anxious I was. Like
Yeah.
I went right from that to like then feeling sad, like, oh well, feels mean to say, but like, oh, lost time. Like now, like, I wanted to have this nice age gap. Like there's all these other little things that you don't even think about, that it's like that maybe even almost feel like selfish admitting, but uh, it's actually, come to find out that's common, of like, oh, that like missed time. And like now there's a larger age gap than I wanted. And like just kind of realizing like, oh, that's something that's now like not in my control. And then we just kind of immediately tried to go right into like having another, like getting pregnant again, while I was obviously still upset, but I'm just like, well, I'm going to be more upset if more time goes by. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
kind of trying to like process, but also I'm going to be more upset if like in the long run, if so I'm just kind of trying to fill that with like, okay, let's get pregnant again. And then stressed if I didn't, there was like maybe like, I think 2 months that I didn't, and being like, that's it. I'm having fertility issues now. Like just always a
Yeah.
spiral. And then like getting pregnant and then being like, I'm going to have a miscarriage again. I'm going to have a miscarriage again. Like I could not even relax, like holding my breath until I went for that first appointment and just being like, they're gonna do the old. I was like crying before she even, put the jelly up. Like they're gonna do the ultrasound. There's gonna be nothing there. There's gonna be nothing there. And like, okay, there's the baby. And I was just like the most hysterical. I'm like, they must see this all. She like had no reaction. She's like, okay, yeah. And I'm just like, was so, so, so emotional. Like, I felt like that's when I could finally take a breath. But then also reflecting on, well, what about the people that lose their baby at 20 weeks, 27 weeks, have a stillborn? Like, I felt like, oh, I could take a breath because now I've made it past the point that I lost. But for some people, that's the whole time, like
Yeah.
it's just so, it just kind of, I wasn't prepared for how it kind of like taints like your next experience. You know what I mean? You think,
Everything.
like, oh, it's so common, so it'll happen to me. But once it happens to you, then it's like, it really took a different turn there. That makes sense.
Yeah. And the amount of like, I feel like it's the number one most common thing is the age gap thing because
Mhm.
people have it, which you try to like, I've definitely probably said this to you. Like, I've had so many conversations about that with friends. Um, because not in the position, you're like, I'm this like pillar example of this because my brother was 6 years older than me, which is never the age gap that anyone would actively
Yeah.
choose. And we couldn't have been closer our whole lives, like, of course, we ebbed and flowed because when you're young, you're living like very, very different experiences with that different apart, but then you get older and it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Even still, we were close the whole time. He was so protective over me. Like, I would try to share that with people to be like, the age doesn't necessarily matter, but that doesn't matter. Like saying that to your friends, it still feels like, okay, but this is what my heart was set on.
Right.
And this is what I now, to your point, have no control over. And
Yeah.
that has been the most common conversation I have had. And it's all going to work out beautifully. Your girls are going to be so close. Like
Yeah.
it's going to have, but during it, that doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And it
Yeah.
feels terrible. And to your point, also, it feels a little trivial, but it's not, right? It's the
Right.
family plan and the dream that you had, and everything is falling apart around you. It feels like in terms of that. And then
Mhm.
you're also like, well, now when is it going to be? Is it going to be in the fertility spiral? Like, I just can't.
Yeah.
There's so many layers. There's so many unspoken and invisible layers. And I know people are talking about it more and more, which is great. But I don't know that made your experience any easier.
Yeah, probably not, because well, I mean, like yes and no. It's like it was nice. Like I did have like a group of friends, like several friends that had been through it, and like the things that they had like said to me or did for me was like great, but just like there's no way to let everybody know, and I think just like going through it physically and then having to still sort of like show up, whether it's taking care of your other kid, going to work, doing whatever, and just sort of having to kind of go through that. But actually, this plant,
Yeah.
friend, a friend gave it to me. I'm jury's still out on whether this is actually a good idea or not because now I'm like really emotionally attached to this plant. She gave this to me like like after I had the miscarriage, and now I'm like I can't keep any plants alive ever, like but I am like this one. I have nurtured it. I've taken care of it, and like one day Sydney was even like she was kind of like messing with the leaves, and I was like, don't touch, don't hurt that plant. And Graham was like, oh, okay, and she's like, and she was like, why? Or because she was asking why about everything. So then I like
Yeah.
started to kind of explain, like, well, mommy's friend gave that to her. Like, mommy had a baby in her belly, and I started trying to explain it the best I could to like, a 3-year-old or 2.5-year-old, and just started crying. It was like so much. It was like in most ways, I feel like oh yeah, that happened to me, and I'm recovered from it. And then I'm like trying to explain to her like what this plan means to me. And I'm like crying and I'm like, wow, it really does like the you move on, but the pain of it can still kind of be revisited and brought back up. And I do think I'm like, I didn't really process it. I just went right into trying to get pregnant with Zoe, got pregnant with Zoe. Life is crazy. And it's just kind of like, when I reflect back, it's like there are definitely, I'm like, there's just certain things that kind of still you can still bring you back to that raw emotion. Like I remember that on my app, the due date, December 20th.
Wow.
When I get to that day, I'm just like, oh, not that anyone's baby is born on their due date, but I get to that time and I'm kind of like, oh, this is
A reminder.
right around when, would have been. And at that, the first, like when that first anniversary came up, like I was pregnant with Zoe and was thinking, oh my God, I'm not ready. So, but at the other time, it's just on the other side of it, it's just kind of like, it's now I just like kind of remember, like, I think that'll always just be like a little bit of like a special date for me, special time.
Yeah.
So,
It's also the Mother's Day one is interesting because like, I think I'm a really good friend. I care about my friends so deeply. There's like so many things that I think about and care about, and like that I know that story, and because we're so wrapped up in our this period of life, like I don't think about that on Mother's Day, and of course I wish that I did. And now even hearing it in this way that we're relating to it, it is very strange because it was similar. It's better now because it's been 10 years, but New Year's used to be the hardest one for me because everyone's lives are like starting afresh and anew. And I knew that that would never happen for my brother. So that was always the hardest for me, like also starting fresh myself. And it's like similar to nobody would ever think that or have that reflection, nor would I expect people to. And so, like, Mother's Day is a similar occurrence. Like, everyone is going to wish you a happy Mother's Day because you have two beautiful children, and you're going to celebrate your mom's Mother's Day because she's a grandmother, and wish your friends a happy Mother's Day. But I'm asking, like, how do you feel like, because the next one's not far away? Like, will it forever feel a little bit, like you said, blemished or tainted? And that's so hard to think about.
I think that like they say, like time heals all wounds. Like I think it'll get
I don't agree, by the way. I don't think that's true.
okay. I
Last time did, it changes it, but it doesn't go away.
Yes. I think that's kind of like, I think it'll change from being like the first one was so painful. But now I think it'll always be a moment for me to reflect, but I won't be as sad. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how I want to treat it. Like, I don't want to forget that experience. But I don't want to dwell on it either. And I think, a friend also sent me a book. It's called like The Worst Girl Gang Ever. And they talk about how like loss, like, because I do tend to be like, well, I was only 8 weeks, people have it worse, people could lose, and they kind of talk
do
about,
that in all aspects of life.
I know. And they were kind of talking about how, you can feel, your feelings are valid, whether your loss was at 8 weeks or 28 weeks or stillborn or whatever. So, and I do agree with that. But personally, I do know that I would be grieved. Like I would be grieving. It would be way harder for me if it was further along. I just know that because
Sure.
and that's just true for me. So I am able to sort of be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to reflect on that, but I do have two healthy, beautiful children. And I think it's going to be easier for me to navigate than if me personally, if I had the loss later on. I think that's kind of my approach with it is that I will honor. I'm going to try. I'll probably be a wreck if I ever do kill this plant. I'm going to try my hardest to keep that plant alive. And I think like those are kind of some of the things I can do to sort of, just honor that time. But the sting is lessening.
Okay. I know you're not the wackadoo spiritual friend as much as I am. I sent you spirit babies, didn't I? When this
I
happened?
wanted to bring that up because I did actually, I revisited, you sent me the book and I did read
Yeah.
at this time, which was helpful. And I thought to myself, wow, what a little fraud you are because like you're not spiritual. But now when you're going through this, you're like, no, the spirit is still up there floating down. And like the spirit is Zoe, isn't
You
it?
are spiritual. Everyone is spiritual. You don't have to be super out there
Well,
to call yourself a shaman to be spiritual.
I was grateful for it because I was like, oh, when we do this episode, I'm going to tell her that. But no, that is like a comforting thought to be like, oh, it just wasn't, the spirit is still there, it just wasn't the right time, and it'll rejoin.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question. I wasn't sure if you had read it or like remembered all of those sections because now it's been a while since I have. But I'm curious, like, if you did have that connection, do you feel like it was Zoe's same soul that was just not ready? Do you think it was a different one? Do you have any?
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth between like having that thought, because then if I get I also get weird that if I get too sad about like, oh, that happened to me, then I'm like, well, then I wouldn't have Zoe, like that. Like sometimes with me and Graham have talked about that, but then I'm like, well, maybe it's just was always Zoe, it was always meant to be Zoe.
Right.
So I sometimes have that, or sometimes I think like, oh, I do think like, what if that was a boy,
Mm,
but that's when I'm feeling more like sad about it.
yeah.
Would be like wallowing, so to speak.
Yeah. Which there's space for it all. It's all good. It's all healthy.
Yes, yes. So I don't know. It depends on my headspace on that, but
Yeah.
I
And
like
then we'll never know the answers.
no,
So,
but I like thinking it was Zoe all along, because that
yeah.
can feel like I can feel more optimistic about it, and then not feel guilty that like, oh, I wish I had that baby, and then you know. So
Right.
yeah, we'll go with that one.
Okay. I mean, I believe that it had to be Zoe,
Mhm.
but I do that same thing. Like we've had moments and periods of a lot of like hard parts of our lives, and I'm like, well, if we didn't go through that, we wouldn't have Winston, and if we didn't do this thing, then we wouldn't have the twins. And there's just like so because that's true, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like the butterfly effect. Like little changes would
Yeah.
change things regardless. And so that always makes everything a little more palatable because
Mhm.
I think it's real. So. The one last question I want to reflect on here is what about for your marriage and your partner in that? Because I just feel like twofold. Like, this is a conversation I should probably also have with Graham. Like, I think it's men have no idea and no way to understand the things that we've gone through and the ways to relate to them and the there's just so many things that no matter how many words you say, they can never understand it. And on the opposite side of that, I think they internalize and have their own experiences so differently that then get dismissed because they're not the one
Mhm.
going through this really difficult part. And then I think, most really great husbands then just want to step up for their wives. And therefore that like kind of makes them not process this situation. So how was it for you two? And are there like things that Graham did well or that you were like, hey, it would have been better if he did this that you
Mhm.
could pass on? Or, what about that aspect of it?
I do feel like it's way harder for them, like to it. Hmm. Like even with my healthy, good pregnancy with Sydney, like I kind of always say, like I became a mother when I started to feel pregnant, like sick. Like okay, my body's already prepping. I'm going through the sacrifices. Like I feel the kicks. I feel the aches, the pains. Like myself getting bigger. Like that's when my motherhood started, and Graham's fatherhood started when it's like, holy shit, I have a baby in my hands here. You know what I mean? I think that they that whole process is like they're there for you, their wife, like their partner, but they're not like thinking of themselves as a father yet. At least in
Mm,
my experience, right? Like it's just that it doesn't hit them quite the same, right? And so I think the same for the miscarriage. Like, Graham was obviously sad, but he was more like hurting for like it was upsetting him to see me hurting, right? I think I was more attached to the idea of like, oh, I'm pregnant again and like we're gonna have this baby. And there for him there was like I didn't even look pregnant. Like there's no physical
yeah.
symptoms that he can even like attach to. So I think it was more like trying to be there for me and hurting to see me hurting. Rather than like, like for him, like he's not like December 20th could have come and gone, and like that wouldn't have like stuck out to him. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
interesting.
So I feel like it's more like he was there for me, but not as connected to like the baby, so to speak.
Interesting.
Mm. I
Yeah.
don't really even think I'm like I don't blame him because I just think it's too they are just too disconnected. They're just too removed at that point. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
the best thing he could do for me was like just try to be there for me, help out with Sydney, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Did he have the same attachment to the age gap, do you think?
If he did, I think he was trying to do a lot, like, because I was just, oh my God, and then this, and what if we don't, if he did have any of those worries, like, yeah, he shoved them deep down. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Yeah.
part of the problem is that, like, I process very outwardly. So in his mind of like, okay, I need to be there for her, it's like, he needs to be saying things like, no, that's not a big deal. Like, that's okay. Like, no, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's trying to put on the strong front of like, I don't want to I want to try to make her feel better about this, not be like, yeah, I'm really bummed about that too.
Mm.
Crazy me, not being like, how are you doing with all this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's not your responsibility. But I'm interested also because in life, Michael and I have that similar situation where like there'll be things that are on my mind about the kids or life or future or whatever, and he often provides that response, but sometimes it's infuriating because I'm like, can't you just meet me in the bottom here and be like, that sucks?
Mm-hmm.
That's real. That sucks. Like sometimes I don't know which is better, and sometimes you want them both, but like I don't know if it would have been more helpful if he was like, yeah, that's awful. I wish there were that age gap too.
Yeah.
Maybe not for you. I guess it's person specific.
I think also where we did get pregnant pretty quick, like the difference in what would have been and what is like 3 months. I think if we had had more trouble like afterward, like then I think we both would have met until in that space.
There.
But
There.
I think that like and now looking back, it's like, ugh, what is 3 months? You know what I mean? But for me, it was we missed that age gap, and then what if each month
Mhm.
it's difficult to get pregnant, and then the age gap goes even longer, and then I would always be like, oh, I was pregnant for that short, imagine if that worked out, right? So
Yeah.
hard to say. It's just
Hard to
your brain goes into so many like spirals and worry. I just felt I was just so worried and anxious around that time.
Yeah, which is fair. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm sure. I know, I mean, it's helpful for me to hear, and I haven't gone through, or I don't know if I ever will, if I ever try again, but it's all, I think, helpful
Yeah.
for people to know who haven't gone through and people that have or will or all the things. So
Mhm.
sharing your experience is really great. I know how deep it goes.
Yeah.
So thank you.